Hi, Henry. Hi, Cora. Happy New Year. Hi, Bonnie. Happy New Year. I've already seen Henry and Cora today because we were talking. Henry and Cora, you called up and said, rabbit, 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 shark. So, Happy New Year. Happy first day of the year 2021. I hope this new year brings us lots and lots of fun times together in the same place at the same time. But for now, while we still can't get together, we can still read stories to each other and we can have conversations about books on the phone. And someday we'll have lots of conversations about books together. But without further ado, which means, okay, you're not going to have to wait any longer, I'm going to read to you If I Ran the Zoo by. Can you guess who this is? Do you recognize this name from other books? Dr. Seuss. He writes pretty good stories, I think. If I Ran the Zoo by Dr. Seuss. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it, too. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. That's just what I'd do. The lions and tigers and that kind of stuff they have up here now are not quite good enough. You see, things like these in just any old zoo, they're awfully old-fashioned. I want something new. So I'd open each cage, I'd unlock every pen, let the animals go and start over again, and somehow or other I think I could find some beasts of a much more unusual kind. A four-footed lion is not much of a beast. The one in my zoo will have 10 feet at least. 5 legs on the left and 5 more on the right. When people will stare and they'll say, "What a sight! This newkeeper Gerald's quite keen. That's the gall darndest lion that I've ever seen." 10 legs! The new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk at the strangest odd creatures that ever did walk. I'll get for my zoo a new sort of hen who roosts in another hen's top knot, and then another one roosts in the top knot of his, and another in his, and another in his, and so forth, and upward and onward. Gee whiz. But that's just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me the next day in my zookeeper's hat, coming into my zoo with an elephant cat. They'll be so surprised they'll all swallow their gum. They'll ask, when they see my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets things like that from? His animals all have such very odd faces. I bet he must hunt them in very odd places. And that's what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you have to go places quite out of the way. You have to go places no others can get to. You have to get cold and you have to get wet too. Up past the North Pole where the frozen winds squeal. I'll go and I'll hunt in my Skeagle mobile. And bring back a family of what do you know? And that's how my new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. I'll hunt in the mountains of Zamba Matent with helpers who all wear their eyes at a slant, and capture a fine fluffy bird called the bustard, who only eats custard with sauce made of mustard. And also a very fine beast called the flustered, who only eats mustard with sauce made of custard. So, this is the bustard, and this is the flustered. Or it might be the other way around. Oh my goodness. I'll catch 'em in caves, I'll catch 'em in brooks, I'll catch 'em in crannies, I'll catch them in nooks that you don't read about in geography books. So he's going to take his boat, the McG for Gerald McGrew, and he's going to a very unusual place. I'll catch him in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Mortafa Portafa Pel. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll hunt up some beasts that you never saw, ever. Mortafa Portafa Pel. And I'll load up 5 boats with a family of jotes, whose feet are like cows but wear squirrel skin coats, and sit down like dogs but have voices like goats, excepting they can't sing the very high notes. A family of jotes. Have you ever seen a jote? No, I have not either. And I don't think we'd see one unless we went to Harold McGrew's zoo. Gerald McGrew's zoo. Okay, back to the story. Sorry. And then I'll go down to the wilds of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket. Goodness. Wow. Then people will say, now I like that boy heaps. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is growing by leaps. He captures them wild and he captures them meek. He captures them slim and he captures them sleek. What do you suppose he will capture next week? I'll capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute. I'll capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed, if it weren't for the horns on the top of his head. And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a very odd family of deer. A mother, a father, 2 sisters, a brother, whose horns are connected from one to the other, whose horns are so mixed up they can't tell them apart. Can't tell where they end and can't tell where they start. Each deer's mighty puzzled. He's never yet found if his horns are hers or the other way round. I'll capture them fat and I'll capture them scrawny. I'll capture a scragglefoot mulligatawny, a high-stepping animal, fast as the wind, from the blistering sands of the desert of Zinde. This beast is the beast that the brave chieftains ride when they want to go fast and find some place to hide. A mulligatawny is fine for my zoo, and so is a chieftain. I'll bring back one too. In the far western part of southeast North Dakota lives a very fine animal called the iota. But I'll capture one who is even much finer in the northeastern west part of South Carolina. When people see him, they will say, now by thunder, this new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is really a wonder. Most beasts are quite friendly, but still in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly or vicious or mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with it a hunter can never get bit. A zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a thwirl, whose legs are snarled up in a terrible snarl. And then I'll go on and I'll capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooter bugs. I'll bag a big bug who is very surprising, a fellow who has a propeller for rising, and zooming around, making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston with only 2 stops. Now that sort of thing for a bug is just tops. And when I've caught him, the next thing you know, I'll go and I'll capture a wild tic-tac-toe with X's that win and with zeros that lose. He'll look mighty good in this zoo of McGrews. I'll bring back a gusset, a gherkin, a gasket, and also a goose. No, a gooch from the wilds of Nantasket. And 8 Persian princes will carry the basket. But what their names are, I don't know, so don't ask it. Look how many animals are in that basket. In a cave in Khartoum lives a beast called the Natch that no other hunter's been able to catch. He's hidden for years in his cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. But I'll coax him with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks in their cooker mobile. They'll fix up a dish that is just to his taste. 3 chicken croquettes made of library paste, then sprinkled with peanut shucks, pickled and spiced, then baked at 600 degrees and then iced. It's mighty hard cooking to cook up such feasts, but that's how the new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets beasts. I think I got it. Oh, can't quite get it all in there. There you go. I'll go to the faraway mountains of Tobsk, near the river of Nobsk, and I'll bring back an Obsk. The sort of a thingamabobsk, a sort of a kind of a thingamabobsk. Let me start that page again. Sometimes Dr. Seuss makes up so many words that I've never heard of. They're hard to say and read for the first time. I'll go to the faraway mountains of Tobsk, near the river of Nobsk. I'll bring back an Obsk. A sort of a kind of a thingamabobsk who only eats rhubarb and corn on the cobsk. Then people will flock to my zoo in a mobsk. McGrew, they will say, does a wonderful jobsk. He hunts with such vim and he hunts with such vigor. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets bigger and bigger. And speaking of birds, there's the Russian Paluski, whose head ski is red ski and belly is blue ski. I'll get one of them for my zoo. I'll get one of them for my Zooski Magrewski. Then the whole town will gasp, "Why, this boy never sleeps. No keeper before ever kept what he keeps. There's no telling what that young fellow will do. And then, just to show them, I'll sail to Catrue and bring back an itch-cutch, a preep, and an itch-cutch, a preep, and a prue, a nurgle, a nerd, and a seersucker too. I'll hunt in the jungles of Hippo-no-hungus, and bring back a flock of wild Bippo-no-bungus. The Bippo-no-bungus from Hippo-no-hungus are better than those down in Dippo-no-dungus, and smarter than those out in Nippo-no-nungus. And that's why I'll catch them in Hippo-no-hungus, instead of the others in Nungus and Dungus. And people will say when they see these bips bounding, this newkeeper's simply astounding. He travels so far that you'd think he would drop. When do you suppose this young fellow will stop? Stop? Well, I should, but I won't stop until I've captured the Fizza-ma-wizza-ma-dill. The world's biggest bird from the island of Gwark, who eats only pine trees and spits out the bark. And boy, when I get him back home to my park, the whole world will say young McGrew made his mark. He's built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark. These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses have made him the greatest of all the McGrewses. Wow, they'll all cheer. What this zoo must be worth? It's the gall darndest zoo on the face of the earth. I'm going to hold this page here for a long time because there's a whole lot to look at. You see the door where they go into the zoo, and once inside, so many animals. Look at that one. Oh. I like the horns on those. My goodness. Yes, that's what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. I'd make a few changes if I ran the zoo. The end. Hope you liked it. What a fun job that would be to go find new wild animals to bring to your zoo. Or it would be fun to go to Gerald McGrew's zoo. Love you. Mwah. And now I'll look for another book.